The sirens were soft at first, like a distant hum you could almost mistake for the wind. But out here on my farm, where the only sounds are birds and the creak of old wood, nothing passes unnoticed. I stood on my porch, watching the dust rise from the gravel road. 3 county vehicles rolled into view, slow, deliberate, their lights flashing red and blue against the golden afternoon. Behind me, music blared from speakers I'd never owned. Laughter echoed across my fields. Strangers lounged in my apple orchard like they'd bought tickets to a festival. And at the center of it all stood Marlene, my daughter-in-law, smiling wide, her hand gesturing wildly as she directed someone to hang another banner between my trees. She didn't see them coming yet, but I did. I took a sip of my tea. It was still warm, my heart calm as Sunday morning. When the vehicle stopped and the doors opened, the music cut, the laughter died. Heads turned. Marlene's smile faltered just slightly, like a crack forming in glass. The sheriff stepped forward, his boots crunching on gravel. "Mrs. Albright?" I set my cup down gently. "Yes, that's me." He nodded, his face serious. "We received reports of unauthorized public use on protected agricultural land. You aware of any events happening here today? If you've ever had someone mistake your kindness for weakness, stay with me, because this story is for you." Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. I didn't answer right away. I just looked past him, toward Marlene, whose face had gone pale, toward Gregory, my son, who looked confused and embarrassed all at once, toward the strangers now backing toward their cars like guilty children caught stealing candy. "I'm aware," I said softly, "that some people seem confused about ownership boundaries." The officer turned to Marlene. "Ma'am, this property is registered under a conservation easement. Hosting public events here without proper permits violates county environmental codes. We're going to need everyone who isn't a resident to leave immediately." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "But this is family, ma'am." The sheriff's voice was firm. "We need them gone. Now." Within minutes, the festival Marlene had built collapsed like a house of cards. Cars backed out in a hurry. Coolers got thrown into trunks. Folding chairs snapped shut. The banners came down. The strangers, her friends, her guests, her crowd, scattered like birds startled by a gunshot. Gregory stood frozen near the barn, staring at me like I'd just pulled a magic trick he couldn't figure out. Marlene's hands trembled as she fumbled with her phone. The zoning officer handed me a clipboard. "Mrs. Albright, we'll need a statement confirming you didn't authorize this gathering." I took the pen. "Sign my name." I didn't. As the officers left, the silence settled back over my farm like a blanket. The kind of silence I'd bought this place for. The kind I'd fought to protect. Marlene finally looked at me. Her eyes weren't angry, not yet. They were confused. Hurt even. "Mother Albright," she said, her voice shaking. "Why didn't you tell us about the easement?" "I told you," I said quietly, "that I didn't have room for guests. You didn't listen." Gregory stepped forward. "Mom, this is extreme. We were just trying to..." "To what?" I asked. "To take over? To turn my home into your weekend getaway?" He flinched. I picked up my cold tea and walked back toward my porch. "You should leave," I said without looking back. "The farm's quiet again. I'd like to keep it that way." "And me?" I sat in my rocking chair, listening to nothing but wind and birdsong, and whispered. I told them peace wasn't for sale. But before that moment came, before the sirens and the scrambling, I had to learn the hard way that silence can invite wolves. 6 months earlier, I stood in front of a farmhouse I'd never seen before and knew immediately it was mine. The realtor kept talking something about plumbing and roof repairs and how the previous owner had let things go. But I wasn't listening. I was watching the way sunlight moved across the porch. The The way the apple trees swayed like they were waving hello. The way the hills rolled out forever, uninterrupted by noise or neighbors or obligation. Harold would have loved it here. We talked about it once, years ago, when the kids were grown and the house felt too big. Maybe we'll find a little place in the country, he'd said. Somewhere quiet. Just you and me. But cancer doesn't wait for dreams to come true. After he died, I spent 3 months walking through our old house like a ghost. Every room echoed with memories I couldn't escape. His coffee cup still sat on the kitchen counter. His reading glasses on the nightstand. The indent in his side of the bed that wouldn't smooth out no matter how many times I made it. I couldn't stay there. Not anymore. So I sold it. All of it. The house, the furniture, the dishes we'd gotten as wedding gifts 50 years ago. I kept 3 things, his Bible, my rocking chair, and the old clock that chimed every hour whether you wanted it to or not. Then I took the money and bought peace. The farm was 70 acres of rolling land with a red barn that leaned slightly to the left, a chicken coop that needed fixing, and a porch that looked out over fields so golden they seemed to glow at sunset. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine. The first night I spent there, I sat on that porch with a cup of tea and listened. Really listened. No traffic, no television, no phone ringing with people who needed something from me. Just wind, just crickets, just the sound of my own breathing. I cried that night. Not from sadness, from relief. For the first time in decades, I didn't have to be anything for anyone. No wife, no mother, no caretaker. Just Margaret. Just me. I learned to tend chickens, planted tomatoes, fix fence posts with my own 2 hands. The neighbors were kind, brought me casseroles and advice I didn't ask for but appreciated anyway. A stray dog from the farm next door started visiting every morning, and I'd feed him scraps while the sun came up. Life was simple, small, quiet. Harold's memory lived in every corner of that place. I'd talk to him sometimes, out loud, while I worked in the garden. Look at these tomatoes, Harold. Biggest ones yet. He never answered, but I felt him there, in the rhythm of the land, in the peace I'd finally found. My son Gregory called every week or so. How are you doing, Mom? You settling in okay? I'm wonderful, I'd say. And I meant it. But I could hear it in his voice. The impatience. The obligation. He'd ask about the chickens, the weather, the leaky faucet I'd mentioned last time. But he never asked if I was happy. He just wanted to check the box. Call Mom. Done. And then there was Marlene. She'd been polite enough at Harold's funeral, though I caught her looking around the house more than she looked at the casket. She was the type of woman who saw every relationship as a transaction, every conversation as a negotiation. She'd never forgiven me for not putting her name on Harold's life insurance policy. Never said it out loud, but I could see it in the way her smile never quite reached her eyes. Still, I kept my distance. Sent Christmas cards. Invited them to visit when they wanted. I thought that was enough. I thought wrong. It was a Saturday morning in early May when my phone rang. I was outside feeding the chickens, and the sound startled me so much I dropped the feed bucket. Mother Albright. Marlene's voice was bright. Too bright. We were thinking of coming down for the weekend. Gregory says you've got so much land out there. It must get lonely. I hesitated. Just family, dear. I don't have room for too many guests. She laughed. Oh, nonsense. You've got a whole farm. We'll bring air mattresses if we need to. Before I could say another word, she hung up. I stood there, phone in hand, staring at the fields I'd worked so hard to keep peaceful. And for the first time since I'd bought the place, I felt something cold settle in my chest. Dread. That Friday, I stood on my porch and watched dust clouds rise from the gravel road. 1 car, I thought. Maybe 2. 3 cars pulled up. Out stepped Gregory, looking tired as always. 2 restless kids tumbled out behind him. Then Marlene, in designer sunglasses and a sundress that looked too expensive for a farm. And then, 4 other adults I'd never seen in my life. Strangers. They poured out of those cars like they owned the place. Coolers, folding chairs, boxes of food. One man pulled out a portable speaker the size of a suitcase. Another woman laughed so loud it echoed off the barn. My stomach dropped. Marlene spotted me and waved, her smile wide. Surprise. We brought a few friends. Hope you don't mind. I did mind, but the words stuck in my throat. Gregory walked over, hands in his pockets, eyes avoiding mine. They just needed a break, Mom. You don't mind, right? I wanted to say I did. I wanted to tell them all to leave. But old habits die hard. I'd spent my whole life being the peacekeeper, the one who smoothed edges, who gave in to keep everyone else comfortable. So I smiled, nodded, swallowed my anger. That was my first mistake. Within minutes, music was blaring. Beer cans were cracking open. Someone had already strung a hammock between my apple trees. The kids were running through the garden, trampling plants I'd spent weeks nurturing. Marlene set up a grill near the barn like she'd done it 100 times before. This is perfect, she called out. Margaret, you don't mind if the kids use that shed over there, do you? It's perfect for a little camp out. That's the tool shed, I said. It's not. Too late. They were already dragging blankets and snacks inside. I stood there, frozen, watching my sanctuary turn into a carnival. By sundown, it looked like a fairground. The bonfire roared. Music thumped through speakers. Laughter rang out across the fields. My chickens had scattered into the woods, terrified by the noise. I couldn't hear myself think. That night, I lay in bed listening to voices outside. Bottles clinking. Someone singing off-key. The fire crackling like it was mocking me. I stared at the ceiling and whispered, "What have I done?" The next morning, I found cigarette butts in my lavender patch. Beer cans floating in the water trough. Ashes where my garden used to be. My heart clenched. I found Gregory near the barn, looking exhausted. Gregory, this is too much. They need to. Just let them have their fun, Mom, he said, cutting me off. They'll be gone tomorrow. Tomorrow came. They weren't gone. By Monday, they were still there. Marlene had made herself at home in my kitchen, rearranging my cabinets and throwing out leftovers I'd been saving. You really need to organize this place, Mother Albright, she said cheerfully. It's so cluttered. Cluttered. My home. The one I'd carefully built from nothing. I bit my tongue. The strangers, her friends, treated my farm like a vacation rental. They left towels on the porch, tracked mud through the house, used my good dishes, and didn't wash them. One of them even asked if I had Wi-Fi. I felt like a ghost in my own home. That afternoon, I overheard Marlene on the phone near the porch. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but her voice carried. Oh yes, she said with a laugh. We're thinking of fixing this place up. It's perfect for summer get-togethers. Margaret doesn't really need all this space. She's all alone out here anyway. I froze. My hands tightened around the dish towel I was holding. She kept talking. Gregory thinks we could help her manage it. Maybe turn it into something useful. She'd be happier closer to us anyway. That's when I realized what this was. They weren't visiting. They were testing. Seeing how far they could push. How much they could take. This wasn't about keeping me company. It was about taking my peace and turning it into their playground. I walked back inside, my heart pounding, and sat down at the kitchen table. The old clock chimed. Harold's Bible sat on the shelf across from me. And for the first time in days, I felt something shift inside me. Not anger. Not sadness. Clarity. The next morning, Marlene came to me with coffee, and that smile that could cut glass. Mother Albright, she began sweetly. We've been talking, Gregory, and I think you'd be happier living closer to us. We could help you with everything, doctor's appointments, errands, you name it. And we could take care of the farm for you. I looked at her over the rim of my cup. Take care of it? Yes, she said eagerly. Manage it. Maybe rent it out for weddings, events. Gregory has great ideas. It'd be so much easier for you. There it was. The greed beneath the grin. I smiled faintly. That's very kind of you, dear. Let me think about it. She beamed. Of course. Take your time. But I wasn't thinking about her offer. I was thinking about how to protect what was mine. That night, after everyone finally went to bed, I sat alone in my kitchen. The house was quiet for the first time in days. The old clock ticked beside me. Harold's Bible rested on the table. I stared out the window at the dark fields and whispered, "Harold, what do I do?" He didn't answer, but I knew what he'd say. He'd tell me to stand up, to stop letting people walk all over me, to protect what I'd worked so hard to build. I picked up the phone. First, I called my lawyer, an old friend from church named Thomas. He'd handled Harold's estate and had been checking in on me since I moved. "Thomas," I said, "I need to talk to you about the farm." We talked for over an hour. He listened while I explained everything: the uninvited guests, Marlene's plans, the way they were treating my home like it was already theirs. "Margaret," he said gently, "do you know about the conservation easement on your property?" I paused. "The what?" He explained. The previous owner had filed the farm under a local conservation easement, a legal protection that prevented commercial or public use of the land. It was meant to preserve it as agricultural space, which meant hosting events, renting it out, turning it into a business. All of that was illegal without proper permits. "Can you send me the paperwork?" I asked. "I'll have it to you by tomorrow morning." Next, I called the county office, then the sheriff. I explained the situation calmly, carefully. I wasn't angry. I wasn't dramatic. I just told them the facts. They said they'd look into it. When I hung up the phone, I sat back in my chair and stared at Harold's Bible. My hands were steady. My heart was calm. "You wanted a surprise, Marlene," I whispered. "You'll get one." The next morning, Marlene was on the phone again, this time inviting even more people. "It's going to be amazing," she gushed. "Like a little summer festival." I didn't say a word. I just poured my tea and waited. By Saturday, she had it all planned. Banners, a grill station, music. She'd even invited a few locals who thought it was a real event. I watched from my porch as they set everything up. My farm looked like a county fair. And then I heard them. Sirens. Distant at first, then closer. Marlene didn't notice. She was too busy laughing with her friends. But I did. I took a sip of my tea and whispered, "Here we go." The paperwork arrived Tuesday morning in a thick manila envelope. I sat at my kitchen table and spread it out slowly, page after page of legal language that basically said one thing: my farm was protected, had been for years. The conservation easement meant this land couldn't be used for commercial purposes, public gatherings, or anything that violated its agricultural status. And Marlene's little summer festival idea? That violated everything. I read through it twice, just to be sure. Then I folded the papers carefully and tucked them into my Bible. Harold used to say that the best battles are the ones nobody sees coming. The quiet ones. The smart ones. He was right. That afternoon, I called the county environmental office again. This time, I had names, dates, details. I explained that unauthorized gatherings were being planned on protected land without my consent. The woman on the phone was polite but firm. "Mrs. Albright, we take these violations seriously. If you're concerned about upcoming events, we can send someone out to assess the situation." "That would be wonderful," I said. "I believe they're planning something big this Saturday." She paused. "We'll make sure someone's available." When I hung up, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. Marlene came into the kitchen a few minutes later, humming to herself. "Mother Albright, I was thinking, maybe we could paint the barn? Give it a fresh look? It would photograph so well for events." I looked at her over my reading glasses. "Events? You know," she said with a wave of her hand. "Gatherings. Parties. We could really make this place shine. I smiled softly. I'll think about it. She beamed and walked away, completely unaware that the walls were already closing in. That night, I sat on my porch with Harold's Bible in my lap. The field stretched out before me, golden in the fading light. Peaceful. Mine. They think I'm just an old woman who'll roll over, I whispered to the wind. But you taught me better than that, didn't you, Harold? The clock chimed inside the house. 9 times. I closed my eyes and let the quiet settle over me like a blanket. Saturday was coming, and so was justice. By Thursday, Marlene had invited even more people. I overheard her on the phone, laughing. It's going to be amazing, like our own little festival. Margaret's so sweet. She doesn't mind at all. I didn't correct her. Friday night, I barely slept. Not from worry, from anticipation. I kept imagining the look on Marlene's face when reality finally caught up with her plans. Saturday morning, I woke early, made my tea, sat on the porch, watched the sun rise over my fields, and waited. By noon, the cars started arriving. More than before. Marlene had outdone herself. There were coolers, grills, folding tables, even a tent. Someone brought a portable bar. Music started blasting before most people even got out of their cars. My farm looked like a county fair. Gregory walked past me, barely making eye contact. Mom, just let them enjoy themselves, okay? I didn't respond, just sipped my tea. Marlene was in her element, directing people, laughing, posing for photos. She looked like a woman who'd already won. And then, in the distance, I heard it. Sirens. The music was so loud that most people didn't hear them at first. But I did. I'd been listening for them all morning. 3 vehicles came up the gravel road, slow, deliberate. The sheriff's truck, a county zoning vehicle, an environmental board SUV. I set my teacup down and stood. Marlene was near the barn, laughing with a group of friends. She still hadn't noticed, but others had. Heads started turning. Conversation stopped. Someone turned the music down. The vehicles parked right in the middle of the makeshift festival. Doors opened. Officers stepped out. The sheriff walked straight toward me. Mrs. Albright? Yes, sir, I said calmly. That's me. He tipped his hat. We received a report about unauthorized use of protected land. Can you confirm you're the property owner? I am. He glanced around at the crowd, the tent, the banners, the grill station. And, did you authorize any of this? I looked past him, directly at Marlene, whose face had gone from confusion to panic in about 3 seconds. No, I said clearly. I did not. If you believe in standing up for what's yours, drop a like and stay with me, because this is where everything changes. The zoning officer stepped forward, clipboard in hand. He looked at Marlene. Ma'am, are you the one organizing this event? Marlene's mouth opened. Closed. She glanced at Gregory, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the ground. This is just family, she stammered. It's not an event, it's... Ma'am, the officer interrupted. This property is registered under a conservation easement filed with the county. Hosting public gatherings here without proper permits violates multiple environmental and zoning codes. Her face went white, but we didn't know. Ignorance of the law isn't an excuse, the sheriff said firmly. We're going to need everyone who isn't a resident to leave the property. Now. For a moment, nobody moved. They all just stood there, frozen, staring at the officers like they couldn't believe this was happening. Then the scramble began. Coolers got thrown into trunks. Folding chairs collapsed. People grabbed their belongings and practically ran to their cars. The tent came down in a messy heap. Someone knocked over the portable bar in their rush to leave. Within 10 minutes, my farm went from festival to ghost town. Marlene stood near her car, shaking, her phone in her hand. She looked at me, really looked at me, and for the first time, I saw something other than smugness in her eyes. Fear. Gregory walked over slowly, his face pale. Mom, why didn't you tell us about the easement? I met his eyes. I told you I didn't have room for guests. You didn't listen. He flinched. The environmental officer handed me a document. Mrs. Albright, we'll need a formal statement from you. If there are any future violations, contact us immediately. I will, I said. Thank you. As the officers drove away, silence settled back over the farm. Real silence. The kind I'd been fighting for. Marlene finally found her voice. This is extreme, Mother Albright. We were just trying to help you. Help me, I said softly. Or help yourselves? She didn't answer. I turned and walked back to my porch, leaving them standing there in the wreckage of their plans. They left the next morning. No apologies. No explanations. Just quiet packing and quick goodbyes that weren't really goodbyes at all. Gregory loaded the last suitcase into the trunk and looked at me one more time. Mom, I don't understand why you... I know you don't, I said. And maybe one day you will. He shook his head and got in the car. Marlene didn't even look at me. She just slid into the passenger seat, arms crossed, jaw tight. I watched them drive away, dust trailing behind their car until it disappeared down the road. And then silence. I stood there for a long time just listening. Birds. Wind. The creak of the porch under my feet. Peace. I spent the rest of that day cleaning, picking up the cigarette butts they'd left in my garden, washing the dishes they'd used and never cleaned, raking out the fire pit, fixing the fence posts someone had knocked over. With every piece of trash I picked up, I felt lighter, freer. That evening, I sat in my rocking chair with a cup of tea and watched the sunset. The fields glowed golden. The chickens had come back from wherever they'd been hiding. The stray dog trotted up the porch steps and settled at my feet. I reached down and scratched his ears. We're okay now, I whispered. It's just us again. The next week I called Thomas, my lawyer. I need to update my will. He wasn't surprised. What are you thinking, Margaret? I want the farm donated to the local wildlife foundation when I'm gone. Every acre, every tree. I want it protected forever. He was quiet for a moment. And your son? Gregory will understand, I said. Or he won't. Either way, this land deserves better than to become someone's business venture. Thomas drafted the papers. I signed them. It was done. A few weeks later, Marlene called. I saw her name on the screen and almost didn't answer. But curiosity got the better of me. Mother Albright, she said, her voice tight. I think we got off on the wrong foot. I just wanted to apologize for trying to take my home? I said calmly. She paused. That's not what we were doing. Wasn't it? Silence. Marlene, I said gently, I'm not angry. I'm really not. But I realized something these past few weeks. Peace isn't something people give you. It's something you protect. I don't understand why you had to involve a county, she said, her voice cracking. We're family. Family respects boundaries, I replied. You didn't. She hung up. I set the phone down and went back to my tea. Summer turned to fall. The leaves on the apple trees turned gold and red. The air got crisp. The mornings smelled like wood smoke and earth. I fell into a rhythm again, feeding the chickens, tending the garden, sitting on the porch with my tea, and watching the world wake up. Gregory called once. Just once. Mom, I wanted you to know, Marlene and I are going to counseling. That's good, I said. I hope it helps. She feels like you humiliated her. I sighed. I protected my home, Gregory. If that humiliated her, that's not my fault. He was quiet. Then, do you think you'll ever forgive us? There's nothing to forgive, I said honestly. But there are boundaries now, and they're not negotiable. He hung up without saying goodbye. I didn't cry. I'd cried enough in my life. This wasn't sadness, it was clarity. One afternoon, I got a letter in the mail from the Wildlife Foundation. They thanked me for my future donation and said the land would be preserved as a natural habitat in perpetuity. They'd even name a trail after Harold. I sat on the porch and read that letter 3 times, tears streaming down my face. Not sad tears, grateful ones. "We did it, Harold," I whispered. "We kept it safe." The stray dog, who I'd started calling Buddy, nudged my hand. I scratched his head and smiled. That night, I sat in Harold's rocking chair, wrapped in a blanket, and watched the stars. The farm was quiet, peaceful, mine. And for the first time since Harold died, I felt whole again. Not because I'd won some battle, but because I'd finally learned that protecting your peace isn't selfish, it's survival. Months passed. Winter came and went. Spring arrived with new chicks and fresh blooms in the garden. I got a card from Gregory on my birthday. Just a card. No phone call. It said, "Thinking of you, Mom. Hope you're well." I tucked it into Harold's Bible and went about my day. Marlene never called again. I didn't expect her to. One morning, I was sitting on the porch when a young couple pulled up in a beat-up truck. They looked nervous. "Excuse me, ma'am," the man said. "We heard you might know about conservation easements. We're thinking of buying land nearby, and—" I smiled. "Come sit. I'll tell you everything I know." We talked for over an hour. I explained the protections, the paperwork, the importance of keeping land safe from people who only see dollar signs. When they left, the woman hugged me. "Thank you," she said. "You probably just saved us from making a huge mistake." I watched them drive away and felt something warm settle in my chest. Purpose. That evening, I sat in my rocking chair, Buddy at my feet, and thought about everything that had happened. The invasion, the betrayal, the fight to reclaim my peace. Some people might say I was too harsh, that I should have just talked to them, worked it out. But here's the truth they don't tell you. Kindness without boundaries becomes permission. Silence without action becomes surrender. I'd spent my whole life being the peacemaker, smoothing edges, giving in, making everyone else comfortable at my own expense. And where did it get me? A daughter-in-law who saw me as an obstacle, a son who called out of obligation, a home almost stolen out from under me. No more. Peace isn't something you beg for. It's something you build. And once you've built it, you guard it with everything you have. Harold used to say that the quietest people often have the loudest impact, not because they shout, but because they know when to stand firm. I understand that now. My farm is still here. Still quiet. Still mine. And when I'm gone, it'll belong to the land itself, protected forever from people who only see what they can take. That's justice. Not loud, not dramatic, just permanent. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever had to protect your peace from people who didn't respect it, then subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications. We share real stories about real people standing up for what matters. Drop a comment telling us what you think, and share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Your words might just inspire someone else to protect their own peace. Thank you for being part of this family. Until next time, remember, peace isn't for sale.